I can't believe it. We're at the end of the Black Cobra. We're on Reckless Bride, the last one. We started with the Untamed Bride, and then we had the Elusive Bride. Then we had the Brazen Bride. Now we have the Reckless Bride. The Four Roots by the different guys. Prologue, September 15th, 1822. Sorry. The wires got caught. Okay. North of Bombay, India. The incessant tattoo of his horse's hooves thundered through his skull. Rafe Carstairs, erstwhile captain in the British Army, serving with the Honourable East India Company, under the direct command of the Governor-General of India, glanced over his shoulder back along the trail that urged his mount up the first in a series of low hills that spread across their path. Riding alongside him, Hassan, his man, more companion than Batman, kept pace. The long, lanky, frightening, fierce Pathan warrior had fought at Rafe's side for the past 5 years without hesitation. He'd accepted Rafe's invitation to join him in this dangerous flight across half the world. Rafe's mission was simple: ferry the original of the damning letter, evidence enough to hang the Englishman who had spawned and now controlled the Black Cobra cult, and who, through the cult's vicious tyranny, was draining the life from too many Indian villages. Back to England and into the hands of a man powerful enough to bring the Black Cobra down, 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 down. Simultaneously, Rafe's 3 closest friends and colleagues, Colonel Derek Delborough, Major Gareth Hamilton, and Major Logan Monteith, were also heading for England via separate routes, carrying inadmissible copies of the vital evidence decoys to distract the Black Cobra from the one man who had to get through: Rafe. Like Rafe, Hassan had seen too much of the Black Cobra's villainy not to seize the chance they now had to bring the fiend to justice. Drawing rein on the crest of the hill, Rafe wheeled his mount and through narrowed eyes searched the wide flat plain they'd crossed through the morning. Hassan looked too. No pursuers. Rafe nodded. It's too dusty down there to miss racing horses. Nerves that had been taut since they left Bombay the day before eased a fraction. Leaving immediately after your meeting with the other 3 was wise. If they didn't pick up our trail yesterday soon after we left Bombay, it'll be difficult for them to guess our route. They'll expect you to go by water. They'll look to the harbor and ships. Even if they think to look inland, there will be no one to point a finger this way. We are just 2 tribal warriors after all. Rafe grinned and glanced at Hassan, unremarkable in his tribal robes. Rafe was simply garbed with his more European build swathed in those loose fabrics, his blond hair hidden beneath the headdress and attached scarves, and with all visible skin well tanned by years of campaigning. Only his blue eyes gave him away, and one had to see close to see the color of his eyes. He looked ahead. Given the Colts aren't hot on our heels, it's possible we'll have an uneventful journey, at least until we clear the channel. I just hope the others got away as cleanly. September 18, 1822, Michaelmarsh residence, Connaught Square, London. I deeply regret being so dislodging, but I simply cannot accept Lord Eagle's offer. Loretta Violet Mary Michaelmarsh surveyed her siblings and their spouses disposed on their chairs and chaises about the library. She wasn't entirely sure why her rejection of Lord Eagle's suit was causing so much more consternation than the 7 rejections that had gone before. But why? Catherine, Loretta's sister-in-law, her elder brother Robert's wife, spread her hands, her expectation one of complete bafflement. Lord Eagles is everything that could be hoped for, so very eligible in every way. except that he's a dead bore and a pompous ass. Don't you hate these stupid things that pop up? I mentioned, Loretta said, her tone of the utmost reasonableness, that I have no wish to marry. Well, not at this juncture. Not until she met the man of her dreams. But Lord Eagles was the eighth perfectly eligible suitor you rejected. Catherine's voice rose to more penetrating note. You cannot just keep rejecting suitors. Everyone will start to wonder why. Will they? Loretta says. I can't imagine why they would waste the time. Because you're a Michaelmarsh, of course. Margaret, Loretta's elder sister, glanced at Annabella, their middle sister, then with a sigh met Loretta's gaze. I hesitate to press you, but in this, Catherine's right. Your continuing dismissal of all suitors is bordering on scandalous. Why? What does it matter? Shall we find out? You're a Michaelmarsh female, Annabella said, so it's expected that you will wed. And while all would grant you of effective, quieter style than Margaret or I, or indeed any Michaelmarsh young lady in recent memory, that in no way excludes you from the generally held expectation. All Michaelmarsh's females marry usually well. Add to that the significant inheritance that will pass to your husband on your marriage, and the question of who you will accept as your husband is a one sizable portion of the ton is in constant expectation of hearing answered. Loretta hadn't missed the subtle emphasis Annabel had placed on the word affected. The look in Annabel's blue eyes assured Loretta, 2 years older than Loretta's 24 and closest to her age, understood very well that Loretta's reserved demeanor was indeed an affectation, an adopted facade, and if Annabel knew, Margaret did too. What your sisters are attempting to explain, John, Margaret's husband, and said from his position propped against the back of the chaise, is that your peremptory and immediate dismissal of all suitors brave enough to approach is raising speculation as to whether rather the individual suitors it is the institution of marriage you reject. Loretta frowned. She knew precisely what she wanted in a suitor. She just hadn't found him yet. So leave her alone. Robert, her elder brother and guardian, seated behind the desk to the left of the straight-backed chair Loretta occupied, cleared his throat. In case that demeanor was no affectation, Robert was the white sheep in a family, perhaps not black sheep, but at least distinctly bridal. Michaelmarshes were and always been the very souls of outrageous veracity, extorts to their very toes, all except Robert. Orphaned at the age of 12 and left to Robert's guardianship, taken into his family and placed under Catherine's well-meaning but smothering wing, Loretta had quickly realized that affecting a prim and proper facade was the easiest path. She came to appreciate that there was a great deal to be said for prim and proper behavior. It could be used to avoid all sorts of interactions that she didn't want to be bothered with, like paying attention to gentlemen she had no interest in. Her facade usually worked. Sadly, some had attracted to the facade, and given the many years' practice she'd been perfecting it, she'd found it well nigh impossible to make them understand that the prim and proper, highly reserved young lady they thought she is, she's not. Hence the peremptory and immediate dismissals. My dear, Robert clasped his hands, lowered his chin to his cravat, and regarded her gravely from beneath his thickening brows. I greatly fear that your current attitude to all suitors who approach cannot continue. You appear, as all here would agree, to be an exemplary paragon of delicate ladyhood, and such as are viewed in the perfect match for gentlemen who seek a wife. Lord Eagles would make you a fine husband, having given my permission for him to address you, as indeed I have for the previous gentleman. I feel I must press you to consider. No! I will not marry who I don't want to marry. It will be my choice, and I will marry for love. I'm convinced, Loretta continued, that ultimately a suitable gentleman will appear and make an offer for my hand. Until then, I shall of course refuse all offers from gentlemen who do not measure up to your expectations, her younger brother Chester suggested. He'd taken the words out of her mouth. Nonsense! Catherine flubbed her shawl and offended. Lord Eagles is a paragon, too. Precisely my point, Chester replied. I have no notion what you mean, Catherine said. And she didn't, but Loretta did. The possibility had occurred to her, but it was shocked to discover that a 21-year-old Chester saw through her facade and saw the same problem she'd started to suspect. Perhaps Margaret looked at Robert. In the interest of giving Loretta a chance to clarify what she wants in a husband, she might stay with us for a few months. The little season is about to start, and no! Catherine said, laid a hand on Robert's arm. She captured his gaze. That wouldn't do at all. Besides, I dare say you'll be atrociously busy entertaining all of John's political acquaintances. Hardly fair to ask you to chaperone Loretta as well. Well, maybe they did want to chaperone her. Maybe they wanted to play matchmaker. It was all very clear in her mind. Sadly, her theory had yet to translate into reality, and yet she was increasingly concerned that Chester might be right. She might have to change her tack, even if only to avoid more suitors like the likes of Lord Eagles. But change in what way, to what, and how? I'm sure, truly, it would be no great trouble. Why, I really feel it would be right too. Focused on defining her direction, letting the arguments futile wash over her. Loretta was the only member of the company to hear the words of an arrival in the hall. She glanced at the double doors as they flung wide, allowing a lady of striking significance to sail through. All conversation died. The apparition halted, poised in the space midway between the open doors and the chaises, calmly considered the stunned expressions turned away, then smiled delightfully. Esme, Lady Congreve, spread her elegant arms and declared, Darlings, I've come to steal Loretta away. You knew, didn't you? Finally alone in the private parlor of the Castle Inn at Dover, Loretta sat, her back poker straight, in one of the twin armchairs before the hearth and fixed her gaze on the outrageous relative, elegantly disposed in the other armchair. Until then, Loretta hadn't had a chance to ask the questions piling up in her head. From the instant of her declaration in Robert's library, Esme had taken charge. Like an unstoppable force, she rolled over all objections, explained in imperiously fashion that she had need of a companion to accompany her on intermittent travels, and that she determined Loretta would suit. She'd given Robert and Catherine little time to mount any effective defense. Margaret, Annabella, Loretta, and Chester had exclaimed glances, then sat back to wait developments. Esme, she always insisted they call her Esme rather than Great Aunt, was their late father's oldest aunt, their late grandmother's eldest sister. She was the last of the generation still alive, and therefore entitled to act as matriarch of the family. A right she unexpectedly decided to exercise to the full. Her husband, Richard Lord Congreve, a Scotsman, a senior diplomat, had passed away 14 months ago. Matters pertaining to the settlement of his considerable estate had kept Esme in Scotland until now. In search of a change of scenery, she decided on a form of the grand tour, one in which she revisited all the European cities in which she and Richard had held court during his extensive career. As usual, long and entirely literal trip down memory lane. When Esme had let fall that she had already sent orders to Loretta's maid to pack her mistress's belongings for a few months' travel, Loretta had not just seen but read the writing on the wall. She slipped out of the room to direct Rose and take care of a number of other matters made suddenly urgent by the perspective of leaving London forthwith. As she closed the library door behind her, she had very little doubt she would win the ongoing argument. Less than a half hour later, she'd been summoned downstairs and had left Robert's house in Esme's train. In response to Loretta's question, Esme arched her finely drawn brows. If you mean that I heard about the looming scandal your rejection of Eagles was about to cause, then yes. Therese Albelstern wrote to me. That aside, however, I was heading your way regardless. To see Robert and Catherine? No, to kidnap you. Why? Because I promised Elsie that I would take you under my wing and do what she ran out of time to do. She asked you to take care of me? She asked me to ensure that you turned into the young lady you're supposed to be, a proper Michael Marsh young lady, to ensure you sloughed off this ridiculous reserve you've acquired under Robert and Catherine's tutelage. As well-meaning as they are, and please note I give them due credit for that they were entirely the wrong people to have given charge of you. Sadly, your sisters and Chester too young and Robert too serious about taking on the responsibility of the head of house. There wasn't any alternative at the time. Now, however, matters have changed. I made it clear to Robert and Catherine this entire near scandal, and it is indeed that as Lord Eagles and his family are not at all amused at the implied insult of your abrupt rejection, is a direct and entirely predictable outcome of attempting to impose on Michaelmarsh young lady such an alien regimen as prim and proper reserve. I often find a prim proper reserve very useful. Has it gained you the husband you wish for? No. Loretta wasn't at all sure she liked the gleam in Esme's eyes. You've never done this before, have you? Acted as a chaperone for a young lady? Esme, her gaze still dwelling assessingly on Loretta. No. Children, no grandchildren. I have admit that until now I'd seen the attraction, but I do believe Therese Albelstrom might be right. This will be very likely the facilitating one does as a diplomat's wife. I do testament to your heritage, then parading you temptingly beneath the right gentleman's nose. Loretta frowned. Apropos of which I can only give thanks that our first stop will be Paris. They're going to Paris. October 10, 1822. Afghan supremacy. Rafe crossed his forearms on the weathered earthen wall and looked out across the desolate landscape eerily lit by the waning moon. Behind him, in the rectangular compound protected by the walls, a large trading caravan lay sleeping. The camels picketed to one side, the wagons staggered across the open gap that provided entry into the caravan. Tents and rude shelters lay deeper into the compound, protecting the caravan's people from the intense chill. Standing on the narrow walkway hugging the inner face of the walls, Rafe stared out at the emptiness, at the rock-strewn plain unbroken by trees, with barely a stick of bush to soften the stark lines. Zephyr whispered past, then faded, died. Rafe heard soft footsteps approaching. Hassan. They'd taken position as guards with the trader who owned the caravan. It was the best camouflage they'd been able to find for crossing this too open, too uninhabited land. Still no sign of pursuit, Rafe murmured as Hassan halted beside him. There's no way the cult could trace us in such a barren territory. No, so the next time we see them, they'll be ahead of us, waiting for us to come along. I wonder where. Rafe drew his cloak closer and wondered where his friends, his three brothers in arms, slept tonight. Wherever they were, he suspected they would be warmer than he, but would they be safer? He and Hassan had laid to the cultists from the moment they'd ridden out of Bombay's northern gate. He doubted the other couriers had been so lucky. Nearly a month in his mission, yet it had yet truly to start. Impatience niggled. He was a man of action, of facing enemies he could see, meet, and defeat. And around him lay nothing, not even a hint of a threat on the wind. How long would it be before this hiatus ended and his final battle begins? November 3, 1822. We need to start for home, for England now. Loretta folded her arms, her gaze on Esme. You said you'd promise we'd be home for Christmas. If we don't start now, we'll never make it. And the weather will assuredly turn against us. So we'll head back to Venice, then via Marseilles to Paris. Frowning, Esme studied her as she often did, assessingly. I'm not quite finished with you. You've learned to be more forthright, and we've rectified your wardrobe, thanks heaven. By losing all the demure and decorous clothes she'd brought from London, Loretta didn't bother glancing down at the periwinkle blue gown she wore, the color matching her eyes, the delicate fabric clinging lovingly to the curve she would prefer remain hidden. And you now can laugh, converse, and dance with the best of them. Not that I ever doubted you could. Esme waved a finger at you, but your flirting needs work. Do you want to come up here? Are you going to come up? You're interrupting my story. Do you want to come up? Are you going to come here? Smoke. Smoke. Are you going to come here? Are you going to come here? Well, what are you doing? Are you coming here or not? I'm gonna go back to my book. Where'd you go? Come here. Well, come here. Well, come here. Come here. I'm going back to my book. You can come up yourself. Smoke. No eating of wires. No eating of wires, young lady. Smokey. Alright. Well, come here. Oh, good God. Alright. You ready for a story? Ow! Go, 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 go. Can I get back to my story now? Ah, nonsense. There's nothing wrong with my attitude. If I happen to meet a man I find interesting, you may be sure I'll pay him due attention. Therein lies the rub. You need to be interesting first, enough to make him draw near. Gentlemanly, certainly those of the sort you'll find interesting are likely elusive game. They have to be tempted to draw close so they can fall into the pit. That sounds like hunting. Good gracious, girl, that's precisely what it is. You can't expect them to know what's best for them. They need to be persuaded to take the bait. But before we start bandying further metaphors, the fact remains that my work with you is not yet done. I have therefore decided we will return to England by a different route. We'll head to Buda. Richard and I spent a few months there before the Treaty of Vienna. From there, we'll take the rivers to the Channel. Much less chance of our plans being disrupted by weather. Later considerations stilled any protests Loretta might have made. Different cities, fresh fields. Esme considered, where is it? If we're traveling to Buda, now we've lost Philip, we'll need to hire outriders as well as a coach. The courier guide Esme had hired in Paris to see their party's needs through the journey had fallen victim to a local contessa. The contessa had captured him and whisked him off to her isolated castle. Esme had confirmed that Philip would not be traveling on with them. Or should we try to find another courier guide? If we're to go by boat from Buda, we'll have no need of one. In that case, I'll go into town and make the arrangements, Loretta said, and send off another window on your vignettes to her agent. The readers of London Inquirer had apparently become addicted to her latest reports. November 20, 1822, hillside above Drogheda. Rafe blew on his hands, stamped his feet, then couched to hold his hands to the tiny blaze of their campfire. I still can't believe the Black Cobra stationed men in Constantia. He didn't expect a reply to his grumble. Hassan had heard it before. After seeing not so much as a hair of the cultists all the way through Persia and Turkey, they'd taken a ship for Samsung across the Black Sea to Constantia and found cultists waiting for them in the first narrow street they tramped down. They'd found their way out of the ambush, but only just. Both he and Hassan were sporting scars. They'd immediately hired horses and raced out of town. But in this much different landscape with mud, slush, and snow, it was nearly impossible to hide the trail, and the cultists were by large excellent trackers. They're still following, Hassan says. Our mission is to avoid being taken at all costs, which sadly means we shouldn't engage, not if we can avoid it. But duty was duty, and he knew where his lay. If running and hiding was the price he had to pay to see the Black Cobra hang, he'd pay it. Anything to avenge James McFarlane. Moving slowly, carefully not to let the wind knife edge with ice slice through his outer wrappings, he drew out the map he brought from Constantia and folded it. Hassan looked over the shoulder. We're here. Just ahead is the pass they call the Iron Gate, where the Danube flows through a gap in the mountains. We'll reach there tomorrow, and if the snow holds off, we should be able to pass through and out into the plain beyond. It is as I thought. Once we get onto the plane, we have to make a decision. So we keep heading directly east, cutting through the Slavic lands to the northern Italy, into southern France, and from there turn north to Rotterdam. Or do we take the other route and head north on the plain, then follow the rivers, the Danube and the Rhine, to East Rotterdam to Felkstrom? Is it Rotterdam that we have to reach to get a boat to Flostam? That's the channel crossing we're supposed to take. There'll be guards waiting for us at Folkestone to escort us out from there. They studied the map. They fell to discussing the cities, the roads. There seemed real little difference between the two routes. Either should see us to Folkestone by the date Wolverstone stipulated. We're earlier than expected thus far. We'll have to go slowly or pause at some point, but other than that, the routes seem much of the same. As we cannot risk standing out and fighting, which way will be better for us to avoid notice? With that in mind, there's only one way. And that's where the chapter ends. So when do they meet up? When does he finally meet the love of his life? And he's ambushed at the ticket office. They meet at the ticket office in one of the towns. And they decide to travel with the aunt and our lovely lady here. Our lovely, lovely lady. What happens next? This is the final book. Do they make it back to England? What happens with the Black Cobra? They run into some final difficulties. There's a couple of final twists at the end. The Black Cobra pulls out some stunts. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on with the Black Cobra once they reach London. All four guys are there, and they all go after the Black Cobra, and some stuff happens there. And Wolverstone is there, and Devil. We met Devil way back when in Devil's Bride. Like I said, with all of these series, you may meet a new character in the book, but old characters show up as secondary characters, as backup characters. That's why I love the series so much, because you get the character progression through the entire series. So that was the final book in the Black Cobra series. We started with the Untamed Bride and the Elusive Bride and the Brazen Bride, the Reckless Bride. Next week we have a standalone, the Lady Viscal. But there is people in this. There are characters from Sinsters, there's characters from the Bastion Club, there's characters from the Black Cobra in here. The Duke of Wolverstone makes an appearance, and Kristen Aldice, the Marquise of Durn from the Bastion Club, and RAFE CARSTAIRS from the Black Cobra also makes an appearance. So it's a standalone, but the other characters do make appearances in here. And then after we do this, we head on to the Buccaneers, Book 1, The Lady Command, The Buccaneer at Heart, and The Daredevil Snared, and Lord of the Privateers. And what's amazing is that these books, like the Black Cobra, all happened at the same time. So if Guy A is talking to Guy B in book 1 on a Monday, then Guy B has to be talking to Guy A on the Monday. So if you could please hit the like and subscribe, I'd appreciate it so much. Have a good one.